This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome everyone. Today is Thursday, what are we at here? November 2nd of 2023, and this is the SIG Cloud Provider Extraction Migration meeting. So Andrew, please go ahead and talk about the PV controller.
Yeah, so I spent this week kind of polishing up the webhook server, like the external webhook server. Maybe let me share my screen and kind of walk through the. Give me a sec.
I gave you co-host. You should be good to go.
Thank you. How do I? Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll share this full screen here. Okay, so no, 1 second. Okay, this one. Yeah, so basically, I kind of cleaned this PR up, or this project up a little bit, added some tests and added some like reference manifests. But basically, like we're basically publishing a webhook server that comes with a mutating webhook configuration for PVs, basically. And the implementation, like the important part is that the actual like logic implementation is all just like importing existing like legacy provider implementations. So I imagine like kind of the biggest challenge is just going to be like getting the webhook server up and running and making sure, like webhooks have obviously come with some operational risk. But I'm hoping this is like fairly low risk because it's just intercepting like the create requests for PVs. Yeah, so like, once the webhook's kind of wired, like all the logic is just importing all the existing provider implementations. Like it's basically an exact copy of what's in API server. And so the actual like admission logic should be identical. So this kind of, I would say like this, the webhook implementation is like kind of, I would say complete. I mean, I think it'd be good to have more people like review it and just, like I added some tests, but more tests is probably better. So that's that. And then, oh yeah, so I also work with DIMS to like publish a image for the webhook in the staging registry. So there's a public registry to host this image as well. So then the other thing which Walter was helping me review is, I'm not sharing that one. Give me a sec. So then there's this follow-up PR to update the cluster scripts that we use in CI. So first thing is, in the default CI configuration or like default kubeup configuration, we no longer run the persistent volume label admission. So that's effectively like removing the in-tree logic, right? And then we now run, we now like install the webhook. Like it's the same webhook, except in the kubeup configuration, like we're not creating like a deployment for the webhook server. We're just pointing the webhook URL to localhost because we're going to run the webhook server as just a sidecar in the Cloud Controller Manager. So we basically just appended like this webhook server as a sidecar in here. And I just figured that's easier because like we're already running Cloud Controller Manager. We're already doing like all the wiring of the environment variables in there. And so sidecar seemed much like kind of safer and easier than like creating a whole new deployment.
Yeah, and Walter's got his hand up too.
Yeah, I think Andrew was deliberately ignoring it because he knows what I'm going to ping him about, which is I really liked the change. I approved it. So but I do have a slight quibble with the retry failure on the webhook.
Yeah. You mean the failure policy?
Fail is dangerous, man. Fail is dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, like you said in the PR, like it's we'll monitor like the test failures and we'll flip it to ignore if it's problematic.
I mean, that's fair. And I think in the end, at some level, it should be the individual cloud providers can determine what they want it as. But my general experience is that fail is for security systems where you need a guarantee that the webhook ran. If you have something that can be post fixed by, you know, like I just need to add an annotation to make this thing work, then I wouldn't take the risk of doing fail. I would say get it running 90 some percentage of the time. And if you very occasionally have to fix it, you're still probably better off than risking having the entire system get wedged behind that webhook.
Yeah, so maybe we can follow up with Michelle on this because
Yep.
because my interpretation of the labels is like the webhook only intercepts create, right? So like if we used ignore and like we failed, like we missed the first create, then we're never gonna add the topology labels afterwards. And I think there might be some like implications around like data availability and like once the PV is mounted to a pod in a specific zone or region, like it's gonna run there for however long based on whatever the topology labels it was given at the time. And that could cause like that could break like guarantees around like fault tolerance and all that stuff. Like I don't know the details, but
No, that's fair, and I think that's all true. But the one thing I will add to it, which is worth knowing, is from when we did this the first time and we're chatting with Michelle, one of the things she mentioned was that this is not the normal use case.
right.
This is for legacy disks that need to be that pre-exist the Kubernetes cluster and need to be adopted in. So
Yeah.
my general feeling is this is an edge case. Like if this were the normal PV creation, I think I'd be less, I would be more on your side, but this one just seems like the very few cases it happens, it'll mostly work. And if it doesn't, maybe we can fix it, or we could even run, you know, like you have this labeler that could be run and could take care of it. So I wonder if it's worth the risk of wedging the cluster.
Yeah, I agree. I'll keep an eye on it. Very easy fix to make. I'm mostly kind of like one reason I want to keep it as fail for now is because I want to see what tests break. Because I imagine it's much easier to root cause. Like if we have flaky tests or failing tests and we use an ignore policy, I imagine it'll be harder to root cause like a test failure because the test would randomly fail because like, oh, it can't find like some test fails because it can't find the right zone for a volume and like it's harder to figure out why. Whereas with fail, we'll know right away from the test, like the PV just couldn't be created because the webhook kind of aired out or whatever. But yeah, definitely if we start seeing flaky tests, I'll just switch to ignore and we can move it. We can kind of take it from there.
Yeah, the sad part is I think this is one of the few cases where we're not going to be able to get rid of the webhook using a cell rule.
Yeah. But you know where we can use a cell rule actually. So in the like one problem actually here is that the webhook or the way the webhook has to be configured is that it intercepts it basically has to be in the emission chain for like every single PV created.
Mm-hmm.
But the actual logic only cares about let me check. But we only actually care about like where is it? Like these 4 cases, right? Like if the spec has GCPD or Azure Disk or AWS EBS or vSphere volume. So we could add a cell rule saying if the PV is not touching any, if the PV is only if the PV like has any of these fields as not nil, then we can invoke the webhook. Otherwise, just skip the webhook entirely.
How do you get it to know? I mean, I like the idea, but do we actually have support for cell control? I mean, it's a great feature. Maybe if it, how do I say this? I like this idea. It's a great idea. Does API Machinery have a mechanism? And if not, maybe we should go chat with them to control whether or not a webhook is going to be run from a cell rule.
Yeah, we have a webhook match conditions. Remember? It was
No, but okay, I'll go take a look. Thanks.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me dig up this.
This is going to be a little bit embarrassing, given I helped with the initial webhook implementation.
No. It's a different feature. So like Tim, myself, and some folks from AWS, we promoted this to beta in 128. So it's a very new thing. But
okay.
So webhooks now have this like match conditions field where you can give it like basically a list of cell expressions to basically decide if a webhook should be invoked. So in this specific case, you can say like if a PV is not touching the GCE or the Azure or the AWS like volume fields, just like skip, like don't bother invoking this webhook.
I like that. That seems like a significant, I mean, that also significantly reduces my concerns about having it be a fail.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah,
Cool.
I will add a note to follow up on that.
Yeah, I like that. That's good.
I had a comment and a question as well. So my comment, I think like, this is definitely prime for a blog post, Andrew. Like, so, offer still stands if you want to, collaborate on something. I think if we had a blog post describing like what this is, when to use it, how to use it, like those kind of things, that would probably be really good. And then,
can I plus one that and also suggest that we don't just how to use it, etc., which El Miko said, which I agree with, but in fact we suggest it as an example of how you can do something similar for other similar cloud provider specific problems.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I want to do like 2 separate blog posts, like one for the PV admission webhook and another for like the graduating the like cloud provider disabling feature gates to beta. I'd say for this release, like let's just do like one big blog post and just cover both things.
okay. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it like contextually to me, it makes sense as 2 blog posts, but yeah, like I think because this PV controller is like intimately tied to the migration that we're making, it probably makes sense to, like we could tell the story together, right? Like we had to make this because of the other thing. Okay. But then Walter, what you're talking about though, is you'd like to see a little bit of discussion as well as like, look, the pattern of what we did here with the webhook is really an indicator of how you could use this type of pattern to solve other types of provider specific problems that might come up. Is that was kind of your concern?
I'm concerned maybe isn't the word I'd use, but yes.
Or request, I should say. Sorry.
I mean, I'm just thinking like we built, I mean, we built the whole webhook in the automatic hosting of webhook in CCM generically rather than just for this, because we thought that other similar problems would occur, right?
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Andrew has gone ahead and met the original goal, but the reason we built it the way we did was to make it a generic solution And so I think the idea of having a blog post and using the original problem or the solution to the original problem as a sample of how to fix future related issues, I think is valuable, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to show too much of the secret sauce, but I will say that GKE at this point has dozens of webhooks that it runs that are GKE specific because something like this never existed.
Yeah,
And so
that makes
if this
perfect
had
sense.
existed back when all those webhooks were being run, I have a feeling we would have done it differently, and maybe we can we can prevent other cloud providers from having to build specific webhook managers.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. And I think from like a story perspective, this works out great as a blog post because we start by talking about the in-tree, removal and where we're at with the beta status. We talk about the problems that it brings up and why we added webhooks. And then here's a great example of how to solve those problems with this like PV admission controller. So
I 100%. The other thing I will say is, and I think this is sort of an so one question we may get, and then maybe I'm just inventing something here, is, hey, why are you guys talking about webhooks when API machinery is actively pushing people away from webhooks with Cell? And the interesting thing is, I think there's a very good answer to that, which is that Cell is great if you don't need to make RPC calls. But fundamentally, if this is a cloud provider webhook, it's a cloud provider webhook because you need to make RPC calls. So
right.
we
This
are
is like the one case. Right. This is like the one case where you actually need the webhook,
Okay. I'm getting chucked out of this room. I will, sorry guys, I gotta go.
Okay. Good to see you, Walter. So I had one other question, Andrew. And looking at the implementation that you were showing here, are we going to need to migrate this to look at the cloud provider repos once we actually remove the legacy code from KK?
Like, so the legacy, like you're talking about importing legacy cloud providers, right?
Once we get to full GA for this, the way I understand that is the Azure, OpenStack, and GCE code pieces that are still there will be absolutely removed from KK.
Yeah, like we're gonna remove the staging repos in KK, but whether we keep the like actual, like not the staging part, but the actual repo that is synced to staging, like it's up for debate if we want to just like leave that as is forever.
Okay.
Well, not forever, but like it'll no longer sync from KK because the KK code's deleted. But
right.
I don't see any harm in us leaving this, like the external module, like just frozen in place.
Okay. Because I'm just
security fixes. I don't know. Like,
yeah, part of my question was like when we get to GA, like presumably there will be some users who still need this admission controller, and I'm just wondering at that point, do we want to change those imports to actually look at like the CCM repos or whatever?
Yeah, we could. Yeah, we definitely could.
Okay.
I would actually hope that by then, like most implementations are like fully on CSI. Like, topology labels are just a CSI thing. But you're right. Like we don't. Yeah, it could be use cases.
Yeah. Okay, so in that respect, then like maybe it'd be okay to leave the legacy stuff there for a while. And I'm sad Walter had to leave because like I just wanted to say like kudos to you, Andrew. Like I think it's awesome that you put this together so quickly, and thanks for like all the hard work and everything. Like it's really appreciated.
Yeah, my pleasure. And yeah, I think I feel a little bad that I kind of whipped up this project like kind of in a silo because we're kind of like in the kind of have a time crunch, right?
Right.
And I think I feel better about the project if there were, even if like all the codes merged, but like if you want to just like do a review of the code and just PR any fixes or improvements that you see, that'd be great. So it's not just yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know people for reviews and stuff, but
Yeah, for sure. I think probably if, maybe as part of the blog writing process, I'll review the code and stuff like, and just try to get more familiar with it. And
Yeah,
then,
sounds good.
hopefully we could just team up on that.
Yeah. And then, okay, so I think one area that you can really help me with. So we said we want to do a blog post, right? And there's like an official SIG. There's an official like process that SIG Docs and SIG Release wants us to follow for blogs, right? So,
Right.
First question would be, is the blog deadline before KeepCon or after? Look, I would really hope it's after KeepCon.
Yeah, I would hope so too. I'll have to look though.
Yeah, and most likely from past experience, they might ask us to upload like a placeholder PR for the blog. So if you can help me get a placeholder PR up, and then after KeepCon, we can pair on write the actual blog post together.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'll follow up on that. I have a couple open questions to the person who pinged us about that anyway. So I'll just follow up with them and see what, because that's what I was asking too. It's like, when do you actually want this? So I'll try to see if I can make that go smoothly. And if it needs a PR or whatever, just for a placeholder, fine. We'll put that in there.
And I don't know if it's the same person, but we should also just, whoever is the comms lead or the docs lead, whatever, I think we should make it really clear with them, like, this is a big change. So top of the release note kind of thing.
I hope that like I put a release note together that said like, hey, these feature gates are switching from false to true. So like, but maybe that buried the lead a little bit much, because like, you're right, this is going to be a big change for people who aren't expecting.
Yeah, like it should be like red flags, need to read, like probably top of the list. I don't know what other changes are. Maybe other changes are bigger, but like I would kind of I would expect it to be like the top first, or at least the top 3 on the release notes, kind of saying like, hey, like if you're running it on Azure, AWS, or GCP, like it's gonna break if you don't do something.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I will reach out, and if it doesn't happen before the weekend, I'll bother people at KubeCon or something.
Yeah. Okay. And then I'll see you at KubeCon.
Yeah, totally. That'll be awesome. It'll be fun to meet up. All right, cool. I guess, did you have anything else you want to talk about?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. I mean, that pretty much covered everything I wanted to. So I think, we're good to call it here.
Okay. I'll see you around.
Yeah. Safe travels.